It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Canada national softball player, Lauren Regula. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start playing professional softball?
Well, I just love sports in general, right? So when I was growing up, I played everything. And as I was getting older, I kind of narrowed it down to three sports, which was softball, volleyball, and basketball. But there was a clear indication that I was a lot better at softball, but I still loved all the sports. And so once I went to school, I went, down to Oklahoma State on a softball scholarship. After that, it was the next kind of natural progression. So I feel like the sport of softball almost chose me, so to speak, versus me choosing the sport of softball.
What was it like, obviously, going to Oklahoma State to play softball?
So Oklahoma State was, every time I think of my experience there, I think of just the word home. I went on, my 5 official recruiting visits. I was I didn't know that Oklahoma State was where I was going to land, but I can tell you that when I showed up on that campus, every part of me was like, this is exactly where I need to be. I felt like I could be 100% myself. I don't know if it's because I'm from a really small town and Trail, BC, and Stillwater is a smaller kind of college town, but the girls were so friendly. I just appreciated so much on that campus and just how I felt. So it was an amazing 4 years, and I'm so thankful that I ended up there.
What was it like the first time you got to put on the Oklahoma State jersey?
I think it was a little surreal. Right now I'm a lot older, right? That was a long time ago. So when I think back and I try and remember, it just was a little bit surreal. I do remember I went to school in 99, and I do remember them showing us, here are the jerseys you get to choose from. And they were just leftovers of random uniforms. It's a lot different right now in the college game. And my favorite number was 8. And it was because my dad's favorite number was 8, because Carl Yastrzemski was his favorite player. And there was no 8 wasn't an option. It was like 57, like 42. And I sat there and scanned all the jerseys, and I found one that was 35. And I thought, well, okay, 3 + 5 = 8. So I'm wearing 8 on my back. And that's the one thing I remember. As soon as I made that kind of connection, because when I looked initially, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no 8. What am I going to do? When I made that connection, I just felt like 35 was my number. Oklahoma State was where I'm supposed to be. And this is exactly the path I'm supposed to be on.
What were some of your accomplishments at Oklahoma State?
In terms of softball?
Yes.
By the time I graduated my senior year, I was the Big 12 Player of the Year. I hold some strikeout records, hold some ERA records. I don't know right now, to be totally honest. That was 20 years ago, 17 to 20 years ago. But at the time, I hit as a pitcher. So the Big 12 Player of the Year was I was pretty excited about that one. Unfortunately, I was in a conference with a girl named Kat Osterman. So any pitching award for the most part was going to be going to her. And so I was really excited that I was able to go on the other side of the field on the offensive side and help my team out, and end up the Big 12 Player of the Year.
Of course, during your time at Oklahoma State, did you ever go to the College World Series or make a run for it?
No, we did. We were one game away, and it was my senior season. And this was before super regionals. This was a long time ago. And it was actually the year I was pitching on, I had a break in my fibula. I always get them mixed up. I had 2 breaks in my fibula. I had one above my ankle and one below my knee. And so at regionals, I was pitching. It was a little dicey, but I couldn't make it through the tournament. So I got all the way to the last game and unfortunately couldn't make it through.
Of course, coming out of college, what was it like going to the national team?
You know, I had been on the junior national team in 99 before I even went to school, like that summer that I was going to Oklahoma State. And so I had some familiarity with, wearing Canada across my chest. And so when I think back of my time where I got to put it on for the first time, I don't think it really hit me. I will just be so honest and say that the older I get, the more appreciative and the more I actually look back at, having the opportunity to play for Canada. My experience this year with, Team Canada had a lot different lens and a lot more appreciation. And not that I wasn't appreciative a long time ago, but I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? There's that familiarity. So I put it on and I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be and I'm just going to go do my thing. I wish there was this magic, kind of movie-like moment. But at the time, that was just kind of the next stage of my career. And it seemed actually kind of normal.
What was that feeling like of obviously putting on Team Canada and having Team Canada across your chest?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm so proudly Canadian. I bleed Canada through and through. Red is, it's everything. Even now, my husband and I own a gym and our gym is red and black and white. I bleed Canada. So having the opportunity to represent our country was, again, I don't know if I really understood the magnitude of what that meant when I first put it on, but I can tell you now, I look back with so much pride and honor that I was able to wear that jersey in the maple leaf for as many years as I did.
What was it like going to the World Championship in 2002?
Yeah, that was an eye-opening experience for me. That was my first World Championships. And at the time, because things have changed, the World Championships was only every 4 years. And so that was my one and only major competition. I didn't know what was going to happen the year after. I didn't know what was going to happen in the 2004 Olympic year. So I remember just, getting into that tournament, eyes wide open, because I'm seeing all of these teams. It was essentially the first time I had seen the major teams. We had kind of played here and there, but even the junior world championships was a lot different, right? Than going all the way up to the senior. And I do remember playing, when you play Team USA and you're like, wait, I have Lisa Fernandez's bat and I'm now playing against someone who has their own bat. Like my mind was a little bit blown. But with that being said, I just wanted to have fun. It was in Canada. The crowd was amazing. And it was just such a cool atmosphere. Never had I played in front of that many people or that much energy or that much excitement. So I think the whole package just made it pretty amazing.
Of course, being your first time, what was it like playing on home soil?
And again, you don't know what you don't know. I was like, is this what all world championships are like? I didn't even know. And I think that was one of the most amazing ones that was put on back in the day. The crowd was electric. And I remember thinking man, we're going to be in Saskatoon. Are there going to be a lot of people there? How is this going to run? And I think every surrounding area and even further rallied for this amazing world championships. It goes down as one of my favorite world championships of all time, without a doubt.
What was it like going to Athens in 2004 to your first Olympics?
Yeah. So Athens, again, after I had played in 02 and I didn't know what was going to happen, but then 03 came again, and 03 was the year that I had my those little fractures in my leg. And so I ended up, I left my college season on crutches and I basically came off crutches to play in the Olympic qualifier down in the Dominican. And then I couldn't walk again. So I got back on crutches. We won a spot to go to the Olympics and my team went on to the Pan Ams and I went home because I couldn't walk and we had a small roster size. So, I think when Athens came around, it was again some familiarity. I I again wish I could say I had this, moment where the skies parted and I realized what was going on. I don't think I really realized what was going on. We headed into Athens and I thought, oh, this is another awesome softball tournament. Let's go play ball. Let's go have some fun. And now that I'm older and I look back, I have a completely different kind of lens. And I realize just how amazing, your first Olympics is. But I've always considered, no matter if I'm playing in a pickup game or if I'm playing, whether it was college, whether it's Team Canada, I just love playing softball. And so I look at Athens as just that. It was another awesome tournament where I got to go play some softball.
How was it like whenever you got drafted and signed with the Chicago Bandits in the in NPF?
Yeah, that was, again, another step. And that part, that was maybe actually had a little bit more of an impact because it was new. It was different. Like I had played for Team Canada. I played in 99 and then there was 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005 was like, wait, there's something different. There's a different league. There's a new team, people that I don't know from all over. I mean, there was, Team USA players, Team Canada players. When you look at just the rosters of the NPF, it's always, it is, remained always top notch. And at the time it started off absolutely top notch. You would go through the lineup and you're like, well, that's first team All-American, every single person. And so that was a really exciting challenge for me, a little bit out of my comfort zone. I do remember showing up to, start training with the Bandits. And I didn't know kind of where I fit in. There was a little bit of, nervousness getting in there. So I think that I remember that a little bit more, having a little bit more hoopla around it because it was just something that was so different.
What was it like putting on the Chicago Bandits and the Philadelphia Force jersey, coming off of obviously representing Team Canada and wearing that jersey?
Yeah, I mean, both were amazing. Nothing will ever come close to wearing the maple leaf. Nothing will ever come close to representing my country. I think there was an excitement because, again, I played for the Chicago Bandits and I didn't really know a lot of the players. I had played against them. And it's just such an interesting dynamic when you get people who are generally competitors and, foes on the field. And all of a sudden now you're teammates. And so I had a lot of teammates where, actually on both the Chicago Bandits and the Philly Force that were, kind of my arch nemesis for quite a long time. So that was just a very interesting dynamic, but I was so appreciative. I was, being able to do anything at a professional level, there's, very few opportunities for that to happen. So I was really appreciative of the time. I was so excited to just play some softball and learn some new things from new players. So yeah, all in all, both of those were amazing experiences.
Of course, in 2004, what was it like to represent Team Canada on the Olympics for the first time?
It was awesome. I'm going back. I love Canada, and because I love Canada so much and I love softball and I put those two favorite things together, I mean, it was amazing.
How did it feel for you to obviously put on the Olympic jersey with the Olympic rings for Team Canada?
Yeah. Again, I'm going back to it. Those rings symbolize everything. I always thought that I was going to the Olympics when I was a kid. I just thought I was going to be a gymnast. I didn't really know it was going to be in softball. So I had seen that. I know the song, the Olympic theme song. I was an avid Olympic, like everything. I would watch everything and I still do. So to think that I was going to be there, it was hard to grasp. And I know that now because again, I think differently now than I did back then, but it's a hard concept to grasp. And when you're in it, when you're in the day to day and you're, getting your training in and you're getting your practice in and the days turn into months, turn into all of a sudden it's the Olympic time. It's almost like you don't have a moment to stick your head up and breathe and really take in what's going on. You're there for a job. So, it was amazing, but I don't really think it sunk in until much later.
What was it like, obviously, preparing for this previous Olympics that you competed in?
Well, this was a lot different. So I competed in 2004 in Athens and 2008 in Beijing. Now, with the 2020 Olympics happening in 2021, obviously I'm a lot older. I have 3 kids, a husband, 2 businesses, and 12 years off of the sport. So the preparation that went in, I had to work my butt off, and I felt like I needed to catch up, and I needed to, kind of put in some time that I had been missing. And I only had so much time with all of the kind of responsibilities that were now in my life that wasn't before, right? In 2004 and 2008, I lived, I breathed, I ate softball. Whereas now, there's only so much opportunity for me to do that when I have a family and I have a career. So I had to really be strategic. I had to be mindful, but I made sure, because I knew this was going to be my last go, I made sure that this was going to be, I was going to look back and say I had no regrets. I did absolutely everything I could, whether that was the training. I always made sure I got my training in. Might not have been on the exact day that it was supposed to get done, but I never missed a day of training unless it was for a reason, like something was bothering me. I never missed a day of training. I never missed a bullpen. I mean, if anything, I probably overthrew because I was trying to really make up for some lost time. So it was a totally different getting ready experience. Plus, being gone from the game for so long, I was used to being within the nucleus of Team Canada for so long because I was there for so many years a long time ago. So it was me trying to find my way, essentially.
What was it like, obviously, being able to balance, obviously, your family life and obviously running 2 businesses while being a professional athlete representing your country?
I just had to, I don't want to say it was challenging because I feel like, I chose this and I wanted to do it. It had its challenges. How about that? It had its challenges because I did only have so many opportunities to get certain things in and done. And my kids, I have 3 kids and they all are playing sports. So knowing that I was, going to be leaving to go training in Halifax, and knowing I was going to be leaving and go training in Florida, I really wasn't going to be missing my kids' games because I was already going to miss enough of their sports and their life anyways. And so it had its challenges. I had to be very intentional with the way I spent my time. Just to be totally honest, like I didn't have a lot of friend time, right? That was something that I knew there were certain things that are going to have to go. And the things that are going to have to go, as much as I would love to maybe go out to dinner with a friend every now and then, like that was completely not there. I really just had to look at what was the most important thing. How can I go through this period of my life with no regrets? How can I be the best mom, the best athlete, and the best business owner? Because essentially that's, my husband and I, it's how we make a living. Like we needed to make it all work. And so I learned to be very creative. I learned to be very flexible. And I learned the world doesn't stop spinning if we do have to shuffle things around to make it all fit.
What was it like, obviously, the first time you put Olympics behind your name?
Yeah, it's a surreal feeling, right? Like after I think the '08 Olympics, or in one of that time period, they came out with the words, the letters, the acronym OLY. So you can have your name. So it's Lauren Regula Oli, or OLY. And it's so crazy to think that, you look at the people that you see on TV and you look at the people that you've looked up to for so long and they're Olympians. And then you're like, holy smokes, I actually have that same, that same acronym, that same underlying kind of honor. And so at the time when it first happened, I don't think it sunk in. I know for a fact it didn't sink in. Like, I think sometimes things are so big, it's hard for me to wrap my head. Like I couldn't wrap my head around it. But now, I mean, I'm just proud. I'm just honored to be part of that crew.
What was it like preparing for this previous Olympics?
Well, we chatted about my days. It was, for me, because I'd been away from the sport, it was something I had never done before. Right. Was approaching my 40th birthday. Which in itself, right, just being older, I had to learn how my body worked again. I had to learn how to use my body, how it is today versus what it was back in, the early 2000s. So there was just a lot of trial and error, but I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything in the way that I did it. I knew that every opportunity I had was spent on softball, and I didn't have every opportunity in my day, but every opportunity that was a free opportunity was spent trying to hone my craft, mentally get ready. When you haven't done something for so long, there's a lot of unknowns. And so I was trying to mentally go through that. We did a lot of mental training. We did a lot of physical training. So it was just kind of peppering and littering my day in with that for months, years, a couple of years, actually.
What was it like, obviously, whenever you won bronze and you got to put it around your neck? What was that feeling like?
I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. That is a moment that I have dreamed about like I said, before I even knew I was going to be a softball player. I thought I was going to go as a gymnast. I've envisioned an Olympic medal around my neck from when I don't even know how young I was. So to have that moment come true, to know that this team was an extremely special team. So to know that this team accomplished that, I was so happy for the girls and for my teammates because of all the time and effort they put in when the Olympics wasn't even an option. There's so many angles I can take, but it was just surreal. I get goosebumps. I still look at the Olympic medal that's just in my house and I'm like, my mind is blown, my head spins. I'm like, holy crap, there's an Olympic medal, in our house. So anyways, it was absolutely incredible. And to do it with the team that we did this, previous year was even more special.
How is this Olympics different, obviously, from last Olympics, besides obviously with COVID?
I didn't find that many differences. COVID was really the only difference. Yes, the fans not being there was a big difference. But as an athlete, when you attend an event like the Olympics, World Championships, Olympics, Pan Ams, obviously the Olympics holds, a lot more weight in terms of what that event means, but what's at stake. So I know for me personally, and I can't speak for my team, for me personally, like I knew what was at stake. I didn't even notice there was no fans. In 2008, when there was 10,000 people, I didn't notice them either. So I don't think there was that much of a difference to me. The things that I wish my teammates would have been able to experience, the things that I say, oh man, I wish we had the opportunity. Like, of course it would be great if there was fans, but going to the events afterwards, right? Because it was pretty much a whirlwind when we got in. It was, you could only come in a certain amount of days before the Olympics started because they were trying to limit numbers. And then as soon as your event was over, you had to kind of peace out and get out. So I would have loved it if we were able as a team to go to the different events and to be able to have that time to play, work hard, play hard. But other than that, people were pretty used to wearing masks. So I don't think that was a huge issue. Everyone was used to COVID protocols. So yeah, there was definitely things in the dining hall. They had partitions and you wore gloves. So that was definitely different, but it wasn't so shocking that for me anyways, it didn't really register on my radar.
Who are some players that you look up to in the softball community?
So it's funny, I'm a pitcher, and a lot of the players that I look up to, like I look up to Kaylee Rafter. She's was our catcher, now Team Canada's head coach. Aaron Cumstone, who was, my catcher for the early 2000s, my ride or die. Like I would look up to her, and look to her, a ton. At Oklahoma State, Ryan Realmuto. She was my rock. Like I would look to her. I would look up to her. So I feel like as a battery, like I always looked to my catcher. So them for sure. And, there's a ton, there's my team, there's so many players on the team that I can tell you that I look up to. I look at the players like the Jenna Kyras and the Joey Lies and the Vic Haywards, those that started with the program right after softball was kicked out of the Olympics. And they started with the program and they remained with the program. And, here they are now, they have an Olympic medal, but they were doing all of the work behind the scenes when the Olympics weren't even an option. Like those are the people I look up to. And then not necessarily players, but I really, really look up to and admire our Coach Smith. I've said a million times what he was able to do with our program while there was no Olympics. He built our program up in a time when it was hard to build up softball programs because you couldn't go to the Olympics, right? Until 2016. So he's another one. And then Lonnie Alameda, we call her Coacha. I look up to her big time, just in every aspect of the game. I mean, I could go on forever, so I'll stop there, but there's plenty of players that I can keep talking about.
What are some of your future plans in your softball career?
I have officially hung up my cleats. So my future plans in my softball career now consist of coaching my daughter's 12U softball team. So I'm going to be on a field and I'm excited to be on it, but yep, I've officially hung up my cleats and I'm ready to focus and pour everything I can into my kids and into other areas of my life.
Of course, as you hung up your cleats, looking back on your career, what are some of your favorite memories and moments? And what was it like, obviously, the last time you put on those cleats and left them at the Olympics?
Yeah. So when I think of all the memories and I think of softball, I think of the people, right? Like I remember some games, but even when I think of certain games, like we beat Japan in the 2004 Olympics, which was a complete upset. And when I think of that game sticks out, but really like it's the people and the hugs and the looks and the certain like I can remember certain situations, but they always go back to the people. Same thing, this year that I played, when I think of the amazing journey, I honestly think of the people that I was with, the kind of situations that came up, the laughter that was had. Again, there are games that I really remember, but it's not without the people. When I think of Aaron Cumstone, when I think of Kaylee Rafter, when I think of Ryan Real Muto, there's such a huge part of every game. So all of my favorite games, their faces are emblazoned in my head. And then, knowing it was the end of my career, I had unretired a couple times. This was my third retirement. So I wasn't necessarily new to that, but I will say, I really, really had a hard time this year. I hadn't played for a long time and I was really trying to find my way and I really struggled. And by the end, by the Olympics, I felt like I had found myself and knowing that I left the field on a personal level, knowing that I left the field feeling the way that I envisioned myself was a really special way to leave the field. So never mind with an Olympic medal, never mind with teammates that I, respect and admire so much. So anyways, that was a long-winded answer. Sorry.
What was it like, obviously, as you said that you've retired previously twice before, but this time it would be your final time finally putting on those cleats and leaving them on the field? What was that like, knowing in that final moment, this is the last time I'm putting on Team Canada?
Yeah. So again, my path is a lot different, but there was a huge sense of peace. And that's something that I didn't have after I retired the first time in 2008. And then I came back for a very short stint in 2016, but I had a sense of peace and I had a sense of closure and I had a sense of, I knew I did all I could, even though I struggled through the year, basically until the Olympics. But I knew I had done everything. I knew that I was ending with the team, such a special team. There were my other retirements, right? After 2008, we had just lost the bronze medal. So we had just lost a medal. And there was always a sense of unfinished business in terms of I never felt like that's how I wanted to go out in the sport. And this was such a crazy emotional ride because the high of the medal, the sadness of knowing this is ending, but also sandwiched in there was really just a very peaceful feeling of closure in a game that, I've loved and an ending. When you picture an ending like this and standing on an Olympic podium, I mean, I can't even imagine. There is no better way to end a career.
What advice would you give future softball players looking to play on the college level and then go into professionally?
I would say find the love of the game. I tell people all the time, I'm 40. I just got done playing. If I didn't love the game and love when people, we talk about how difficult the practices are and it could be a grind. If you don't love the game, those moments are just going to be miserable. You have to know what you love about the game and learn. Also ask questions. I think one way I have changed tremendously from when I was, my early time and even Team Canada is the older I get, the more I realize the less I know. And ask questions, be curious, try things, right? It's so easy for us to poke holes in little, say we have a problem, whether it's a mechanical problem, pitching or hitting. It's easy for us to poke holes in solution bubbles when we haven't even tried them yet. So just try. It doesn't mean, if someone offers you a suggestion, it doesn't mean you're stuck doing that for life, but I would say just try, be open, be curious, and find the love of the game. Because if you're going to continue to play, if you want to play at the college level, you play a lot of softball in college. You practice every day. You have to know that you're playing for the love of the game. And that's going to keep you going and wanting to show up at the field, as opposed to having it turn into a job, which it has, that's happened for some people.
What advice would you give people that are looking to go to the Olympics for the first time, or like you that went multiple times?
I think my advice would honestly be similar. Again, right? Like we play softball. We don't work softball. We play softball. That was actually a quote that was said to me this year from our mental performance coach. He's like, Lauren, we don't work softball. We play it. Like, go have fun. Find the joy in the game, because you will relax, right? You will play better if you're enjoying what you're doing. And same thing, be curious, get out of your comfort zone. And I think it's hard because once you get to a really high level, you think, well, this is how, and I know this from experience. Well, this is how I've been successful. So this is how I'm going to continue to do it. But there's always ways to evolve. And that's something that Coacha, ingrained in me and really just beat into my head. Cause I'd be like, yeah, but I don't do it that way. And she'd be like, well, let's just try, and we can mold and move, and your body is going to work differently, right? If you're looking at an Olympics, you're looking at a quad cycle, you're looking at 4 years. What you're doing in year 1 is going to look different than what you're doing in year 4. And that is okay. That's the progression of the game. So I think always being open and always being curious. By the time I left this sport, which was just recently, I understood, and it took me a really long time, but I understood, okay, you know what? In order to get better, we need to make changes. And it doesn't mean I was doing it wrong. It means I was doing it the way that helped me the best at that time, but I can find a way to do it better. So I think having that mentality is absolutely huge.
What advice would you give professional softball players just like you that were transitioning from playing to obviously retiring and putting down the cleats?
It's a hard transition. I'll be totally honest. And I know some teammates, I'm sure are going through that right now. I had I had those moments back in 2004 and 2008, after the Olympics, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like what now? But at the end of the day, the value, what I've learned, the value that we bring isn't to this world, and the value that we bring to everyday life. I've learned, whether or not I'm good at softball, I still value myself the same. Find things that light you up. There's going to be a million things. It could be softball related. It might not be softball related, but explore other things that make you happy and go after those, and know that one thing I'm learning, and I'm constantly, teaching people that I work with and constantly reminding myself, is I don't ever want to look back and say, oh, those were the best days of my life, and everything now going forward is just going to be a letdown. I don't want to live that way. So there's so many things for us to look forward to. Maybe we can inspire the next generation, whether it's with softball, maybe we can coach, maybe we open our own businesses. There's so many things out there. It's easier said than done. And again, the older I get, the more I start to understand it. But I think it's important for us to know that there's so much to life. And if you love softball that much, there's absolutely an opportunity for you to stay in and continue to give back to the game. I would love, one thing that Kaylee Rafter talks about, right? Leave the game better than you found it. And we can always do that as softball players. We can leave the game better than we found it. So the journey never ends. We just change direction a little bit.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me or find me at Lauren Regula, just LaurenRegula on Instagram, Lauren Bay Regula on Facebook. And I have a website. I'm a mom, so it's called strongmomstrongfam.com.
Thank you again, Lauren Regula, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as you begin your next career and your next path.
Thanks.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Lauren Regula, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.